So, Craig, welcome back to OnPolitics. Speaker Paul Ryan, House Speaker Paul Ryan is due for a visit with the Journal-Sentinel tomorrow, and I thought maybe we'd chat for a minute about how his summer has gone. After the collapse of health care reform, he's been promoting the idea of tax reform and other elements of the GOP agenda. How's that been going this summer?
Well, the test will be in the coming weeks. I mean, tax reform is now the big test of his speakership and the big test of the Republican Congress after the failure of health care reform. Of course, he got health care through the House after a lot of pain, but it failed in the Senate, and there wasn't support, certainly in the Senate, for the bill he passed in the House. Tax reform is going to be a test, another test, and the biggest test yet of the Republicans' ability to govern, ability to agree on a policy and find a consensus and work with each other. They're clearly not going to be working with Democrats on this. And it comes with, obviously, under great political pressure and also with some other little minefields along the way. There's a debt ceiling showdown. There's a potential for a government shutdown showdown. The president has threatened to do that if he doesn't get funding for his border wall. And there's the looming issue of disaster relief for Texas. So there's a lot going on that, it wasn't, tax reform was already complicated. It remains to be seen how doable it is. They have a chance to do it, but it won't be easy for all sorts of reasons. But it's not the only problem and issue and challenge on their plate right now.
Well, and talk a bit about how the president has been playing into all this. It seems sometimes he's working at cross purposes with his own party. He's been talking about bringing back health care reform. Is there any chance of that happening this fall?
Well, there's always a shot, but again, when you consider all the reasons why it didn't happen in the first place, they had every political reason that they have now. They had all those reasons to do it earlier this summer when it failed. So it's not like the incentives are any greater, and the problems are still there. So it's not, and in fact they only got to second base on healthcare. In other words, even had they passed it in the Senate, there was no guarantee of negotiating a consensus bill between the Senate and the House. So they were more than one step away from healthcare reform. The fundamental problems remain. I mean, the president's not popular. That doesn't help his ability to use the bully pulpit. His relationships with even people in his own party in Congress have been complicated by his own scolding of Republican leaders. We've seen that again in recent weeks in the case of both Mitch McConnell in the Senate and Paul Ryan in the House. So all these fundamental problems remain. The controversies, continue. None of this makes it any easier to get these things done. And of course, Paul Ryan has chosen the tack of trying to work with the president and trying to play down and minimize his differences with the president amid, occasional criticism when he feels it's absolutely necessary to criticize. But the potential is always there for that relationship to kind of go awry, as it did during the campaign when Paul Ryan was a appointed critic of Donald Trump during the election cycle.
Now, the last time, we mentioned the flood relief for Southeast Texas, which has suffered devastating flooding in the wake of Hurricane Harvey. The last time there was a major bill after Superstorm Sandy, there were a lot of politics being played. Do you anticipate that that might happen again here?
Well, it's probably a little less likely, but for political reasons. I mean, what happened last time with Hurricane Sandy was it happened in an area of the country, the Northeast, which is a more Democratic area, even though some of the local governors and officials who were lobbying for aid were Republicans. And those Northeastern Republicans are still very bitter about the fact that they had trouble getting disaster relief and getting support from disaster relief from Republicans in other parts of the country, including Texas, which is now seeking relief. So last time you had, conservative Republicans in Congress, some of whom refused to get behind disaster relief under a Democratic president in a Democratic part of the country. Now, those ingredients have changed. This time around, you have a Republican president, you have Republican control of Congress, and you have a red instead of a blue part of the country where you have dominated by Republican conservatives in Congress who are also clamoring for that aid now. So I wouldn't expect, if anything, the politics is easier to get this done. But you have a lot of bad feeling left over from Sandy about the way this issue was handled. Last time, Governor Christie of New Jersey, Republican Governor Christie, has been very outspoken in his criticism, for example, of Ted Cruz, the Republican senator of Texas, accusing him of hypocrisy by opposing the aid for Sandy and then clamoring for aid in Texas.
All right, Craig Gilbert in Washington, thanks so much.